Hello, I'm Bill Tro, a consultant working with the South Dakota DOT study team. The focus area for this portion of the Context-Sensitive Corridors public meeting series is US 85 in lead to the junction of US 385 at Pluma. This corridor differs from other study area corridors in that at less than a mile, it is much shorter than the others, and it is located in a more urban setting. Of the three functional categories of commuter commercial, destination, or destination access, this corridor's primary function is to support commuter and commercial vehicle travel needs. The route provides a primary access between Lead and Deadwood for a broad range of trip purposes, including goods movement and supporting employment trips for people living in one community and working in the other. Actions proposed in this phase of the study reflect needs identified in earlier stages through input gathered at public meetings, working with DOT staff, and discussion with agencies that have interests along the corridor. Action alternatives being reviewed for the corridor address the following needs. First, better accommodation of pedestrian and bicycle travel. The corridor is a primary connector between Lead and Deadwood, and the proximity of the two communities make walking and bicycling between them a viable transportation option. To more safely accommodate pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles, options for widening the shoulder area and options for separating bikes and pedestrians from the travel lanes have been developed. Second, crash reduction or safety improvements. Over the analysis period, the number of crashes observed were higher than the average for similar corridors based on the setting and traffic. The charts here show a combination of all crashes over a study period and severe crashes over that same study period. Over the analysis period, the number of crashes observed were higher than the average for similar corridors based on setting and traffic. The lines here display the range of expected crashes for similar corridors. The chart on the left represents all crash types, and the one on the right covers severe crashes only. The red line displays the upper expected level, the gray line, the lower range of expected crashes based on volume, and the middle line is the average crash rate based on volume. Corridor 4, shown as the dot, has experienced crashes that exceed the average, and for severe crashes is near the top of the range for similar corridors. The types of crashes observed can be reduced or alleviated through design improvements such as adding wider shoulders or adding guardrail, with the expectation the rate can be lowered to be consistent with the average for similar corridors. For each of the identified needs, we have developed improvement alternatives that balance meeting the need with the level of impacts to the adjacent environment and considers cost. Through the next portion of the meeting, we'll focus on each of the alternatives being studied. The displays we'll be using represent cross-sections of various alternatives looking from Lead toward Pluma. To be consistent with design guideline, the concepts for the corridor from the east edge of Gold Run Park to US 385 at Pluma would provide at least a 5-foot shoulder within a 7 to 10-foot buffer or clear zone that is measured from the edge of the travel lane. For each alternative, improvements resulted in a wider cross-section relative to the current, with most, if not all, of the widening occurring to the north. This takes advantage of existing South Dakota DOT-owned right-of-way to the north and avoids impacts along Gold Run Creek to the south. The first option reflects the more traditional South Dakota DOT concept for accommodating pedestrians and bicycle travel in rural areas, which is to provide a paved 5-foot shoulder in both directions. The 5-foot width shown is based on the design speed, with shoulder widths increasing with speed. At 35 miles per hour, at the 35 mile per hour design speed for the US 85 corridor, a shoulder width of at least 5 feet is the goal, and the shoulder would be included within a 7 to 10 foot clear zone or buffer that is clear of obstructions such as trees. Providing the 5-foot shoulder width would result in shifting the roadbed approximately 5 feet to the north, which requires cutting into the rock face where it exists, or removing material from the north side of the corridor from 0.2 of a mile from the edge of lead to US 385 at Pluma. A benefit of shifting the alignment to the north is that most, if not all, existing segments of guardrail can be removed, as adequate separation for recovery would be provided between the road and Gold Run Creek. The attached summary table highlights the safety improvements and adjacent impacts and costs. The information in this table can be directly compared to the other Corridor 4 options, as well as the analysis results from the other 4 corridors, where detailed context-sensitive improvements have been reviewed. Option number 2, enhancing accommodation in the corridor for pedestrians and bicyclists is intended to support the expectation that there is unmet demand for travel between Lead and Deadwood. Improvements to support enhanced safety for walkers and bicyclists includes a 10-foot two-way multi-use path on the south side separated from the travel lanes by guardrail. The guardrail adds a factor of safety for pedestrians and bicyclists as the setback from the road is minimal. As can be observed in the cross-section, the multi-use trail would be located in the current eastbound lane, and vehicle lanes would be shifted to the north. The shift would result in a substantial impact to the north side rock face of a 15 to 20 foot cut. The benefits and impacts of the alternative are summarized in the attached table. The level of impact to the rock face will substantially increase the cost relative to option number 1. Option number 3 is providing enhanced pedestrian and accommodation in the US 85 corridor introduces safety concerns for people walking or biking in the corridor where trucks and autos are also traveling. The proximity of Lead and Deadwood heightens the concern as the distance is short enough for families to walk, which adds children and pets to the corridor users, which elevates the level of sensitivity for safety and also adds some unpredictability in the user. To provide for the assumed need or desire for pedestrian and/or bike connection and reduce the exposure to risk, a cross-section option that locates pedestrians and bicyclists away from the road has been included in the range of options. The surrounding terrain of Gold Run Creek makes it difficult to widen this section along the current US 85 alignment to provide enough separation between the travel modes without guardrail. Thus, option 3 was developed that moved the multi-use trail element to the south side of Gold Run Creek. It should be emphasized with this option that the alignment of the trail concept paralleling the road and the creek is on private property that would need to be acquired to advance the concept. Whether or not there is interest on the part of the owner to sell has not been investigated at this point in the study. Vehicle travel elements of this option would be retained in the current corridor and would have the same physical needs as option 1. Travel lanes would be shifted up to 5 feet to the north, and the 7 to 10 foot buffer zone would be established from the edge of the travel lane, including removing a portion of the north side rock face to provide the area needed. Pedestrians and bicyclists would be accommodated along a 10-foot wide trail that would require cuts of 15 to 20 feet into the rock area on the south side of the creek. The trail section would start at Gold Run Park and travel along the creek alignment to US 385 and a junction with the Mickelson Trail. An added level of consideration in this option is separating impacts by mode between the current alignment and the trail, and whether there is support or the need that is consistent with the impacts. A key purpose of this meeting is to gather input regarding potential use relative to the cost and private ownership impacts. An initial environmental scan has been completed to understand current environmental resources that could be impacted by the proposed improvements and set the stage for future environmental analysis and clearance processes. Resources present along the corridor include wetlands, potential historical structures such as the trestle sign, and visual resources. The results of the evaluation relative to the same criteria as the other options is shown here. All of the options proposed are consistent with the corridor vision as a commercial commuter corridor, and they improve accommodation for all modes relative to the current. Additionally, all of the alternatives proposed meet South Dakota DOT design guidelines. Environmental and property impacts for each of the alternatives reflect modest to a substantial level of impact due to the amount of rock and fill that would need to be removed. Property impacts of option 3 are substantial, as the multi-use trail element is located outside of South Dakota DOT right-of-way. From a cost perspective, the construction cost per mile for each of the options is higher due to the need to remove rock to establish the area to construct the shoulder and/or a multi-use path. Thank you for viewing this presentation. To learn more about Corridor 4, click the orange Get Started button now, located below the video. This will take you to the overall corridor location map. By pressing and holding the left mouse button, you can move the overall map to view the corridor you are most interested in. A quick mouse click while hovering over Corridor 4 will take you to more detailed information. These instructions are repeated by clicking the About icon located in the gray ribbon along the left side of your screen. The Corridors icon, also located in the gray ribbon, allows you to quickly navigate between the corridors. Once you reach the detailed information, please click on the dash boxes to provide feedback. We look forward to hearing from you.